All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out to our second public meeting on the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. I am Gina Roberson, Special Advisor to the Mayor for Community Affairs. Our mayor is with us this evening, Mayor Wanda R.D. Williams, our City Council President, Danielle Bowers, City Council Member Ralph Rodriguez. Everyone else, welcome. I am going to turn this over to Ms. Heather Lisbauer and Tom, as he prefers to be called, Beckett. They are from NW Financial Group, not Northwestern. And they're here to give you a brief background about what the rescue plan is and to answer any of your questions or concerns so you can get a better understanding of what we can and cannot do with these funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, and thanks to the Mayor and City Council for having the confidence in our firm to be a resource for the community in Harrisburg as you make some important decisions about how to spend $47 million. I'd like to start out by reintroducing myself and my colleague Heather Litzbauer and our firm NW Financial Group. NW Financial Group is we've been in business for over 25 years. We advise municipalities and other institutions on fiscal matters. Sometimes that's how to borrow money, sometimes that's how to deal with their budget, sometimes it's how to talk to rating agencies. In the past several years during the pandemic, we have developed a team and a set of expertise that deals with advising our clients on how to best deploy the recovery dollars. We first started that with the CARES Act in 2020, and we continue that with what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the American Recovery Plan Act. How we doing? So there's a lot of jargon and abbreviations and acronyms in this, and so if you bear with me, I'll throw some of those out. But what we're talking about is the American Rescue Plan, and this is the $2 trillion plan that was put together by the current administration, and it built upon some of the work that was done in the last administration under the CARES Act. So it's very similar. What we're specifically talking about tonight is the $350 billion state and local fiscal recovery plan. And that is the pot of money that your $47 million came out of. Almost every community in the United States was allocated some level of state and local fiscal recovery act dollars. And you know, Harrisburg has got 47 million, Allentown has 53, Reading has their pocket as well. Even some of the smaller communities, townships and such like that, have $1 million here or $2 million there. And it is primarily going to be utilized to do four or five things. Number one, maintain public services. You'll hear us talking about revenue replacement. That's designed to maintain the level of public services that have been impacted by the pandemic. The second thing is to actually continue to fight the pandemic, to deploy money and have funds available to do those things that communities need to do to keep us healthy and to hopefully bring this to a close. The two most important things for our purposes tonight are the American Recovery Plan Act and the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund are designed to support struggling families, businesses, and industries that have been harmed disproportionately by the pandemic and its consequent economic impacts. And the last thing is to provide an opportunity for long-term growth in communities throughout the country and to build a strong, resilient, and most importantly, equitable economy coming out of this. There are so many different possible uses. Although it seems like 437 pages of what we call the final rule is very prescriptive. What we're finding is that if you categorize your programs or your expenses in 4 buckets, it's somewhat wide open to your imagination. And what we're going to do is Heather's going to talk in great detail. Heather and my colleague Julie, who was at the meeting last night, are really our brain trust for this. They have been through the regs and everything else time and time again and have a level of detailed understanding that I don't possess. But I'll turn it over to Heather, and she'll give you an examples of what the general categories are and some of the possible uses of the money are. Last thing I'll leave with you is we're here to be a resource. The decision on what to spend money on is, as it should be, in the hands of your community and your, through your elected officials. We're not here to say yes or no. We're here to provide advice. So with that, I'll give up to Heather.
Just to expand a little bit about what Tom was just saying, with any federal program, at some point it's going to be audited. We've seen it with a bunch of different storms, hurricanes, tornadoes. At some point down the road, the funds are going to be audited, so it's very important to have backup of what you're spending the money on and whether it's eligible or not. You want to make sure that it's eligible under the program. So that's one of our biggest roles, is to, as you say your ideas, and mayor and council are talking about what to use the funds on. It's our job to go back and find in the final rule justification of why those expenses are eligible under the program, so then you don't have issues down the road. There's 4 major categories of eligible uses. One is public sector revenues, public health and economic response, premium pay for essential workers, and then water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. On public sector revenues, it's really looking at the city's budget and figuring out if there were any revenue loss that occurred due to the pandemic. And if there was, then you can use the funds for that revenue loss, and it gives you greater flexibility on projects that you can use the funds for. As an example, if you have $5 million of revenue loss, then you can take those funds and use the $5 million on any government purpose. So you can fix roads, you can build a new road, you could build a bridge, you could use it to help pay increasing salaries, build a new building. There's a variety of different uses that can be done under the revenue loss category. Under public health and economic response, that is responding to the pandemic and its economic harms. It's assistance to impacted or disproportionately impacted communities, and that's defined as low and moderate income, which predominantly the city of Harrisburg falls under that, which gives you a greater latitude of what you can use the funds for. Small businesses, nonprofits, impacted industries such as tourism, and then any help with the public sector. Some examples of eligible uses under that category is testing and vaccination programs, enforcement efforts to the increase in gun violence, rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, mental health and counseling, job training for people that were affected during the pandemic or lost their jobs, and addressing learning loss for K through 12 students. We all know that students were greatly affected during the pandemic, especially while a portion of time they might have been studying at home. So the funds can be used under this category to help children. Premium pay for essential workers, that's any government employees that worked in person during the pandemic, they could receive up to $13 an hour in bonus pay, up to a maximum amount of $25,000. And then the last category is water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Some examples on that is lead remediation and lead service line replacements, fixing any flooding issues, so a flood mitigation plan, and then doing the construction to help the issue. Stormwater infrastructure, helping get access for families to broadband, green infrastructure projects. There's a variety of different infrastructure projects under that category. We gave a broad overview of the different categories and some examples of what projects you can fund using the money. So I think we'd like to hear from the community and see, what your thoughts are, and we can answer any questions you have on eligible uses.
Anybody have a question?
Sure. Excuse me? Senior Citizen Center. We'd have to look at that. I'm not sure if that would be an eligible use. I know some communities have gone into the senior centers and made it more of an open space, changed configuration, so the community doesn't have to be closely next to each other. But the construction of a senior center, we would have to look at that, and we'll take down that question, and the city is taking questions, and we'll respond to them for any ones that we're unsure of. And I'll be posted on the website, Gina? Okay. Yeah.
So my husband and I own a nonprofit working with youth in the city, and when COVID hit, we lost a lot of our funding, and a lot of the access that we had was shut down, and we weren't able to follow through with our program. So just wanted to see how we can do some of that pressure.
Sure. Any small business or nonprofit that is within a qualified census tract is defined by Treasury as a disproportionately affected business. So the funds could be used to help nonprofits or small businesses with any revenue loss that they may have had.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're a church, and we're running a virtual school right now.
Okay.
So you want to know if anything you're available for us running school that we have in there now?
Running additional school programs.
After school and stuff that we do now. So.
Okay. Yeah, that would be an eligible use within a qualified census tract, helping K through 12 learning additional programs. The one thing that we do have to be careful about is that the city of Harrisburg's school system received $50 million as well under the ESSER program for the American Rescue Plan. So every school district within Pennsylvania received additional funds. So the one thing about something that involves children is making sure that there's already not a program out there that is similar, that it's getting funded, or potentially combining programs. So there is additional money for schooling, not just the city can spend their funds on helping children, but the school district can as well. So there'd have to be a conversation with, who is providing what funds and for what programs.
That'll be a conversation with who?
Excuse me?
A conversation with who?
The mayor, council, and the school district.
Is there any process in place
So I think what the outreach meetings, and Gina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but right now we're at the planning stages, want to hear what the community has to say and what they want to see the funds used for. And then the mayor and council will get together and discuss all the different ideas. And then from there, a process will come out.
Okay, in the heard it said that you could submit ideas to
Yes.
for email address.
Yeah, there's an email address.
And I asked, could someone confirm whether they received? And I've not heard back.
Okay.
You know?
There was he had submitted a question to the email address and no one confirmed that the question was received.
Oh, okay, you just need a confirmation that it was
Yeah, I
received.
would appreciate it
Okay.
to know if that happened or not.
When did you send it?
I sent it on February 14th.
And we'll be taking those questions. We'll be looking through the final rule to make sure those expenses are eligible under the program. And we'll provide that to the city, and the city will either email it out or post it to the website.
Is any of this money available for new builds, any community as far as like housing or business? Low income housing or business?
Yes. In a qualified census tract or in a impacted community, which Harrisburg would fall under, low-income housing, affordable housing is an eligible use under the public health and economic response category. That originally was not spelled out in the interim final rule. It was something that changed in the final rule that came out in early January, and that is an eligible use.
Is there a cap on how much someone can apply for?
It depends on what type of program the city wants to do for affordable housing. We've seen some communities that are interested in building new affordable housing complexes. We've also seen other programs where it's rental assistance to people that have been affected during the pandemic, or trying to find additional housing in other areas. So it just depends on what sort of program it is and what the stipulations of each programs are. Each community creates their own program and decides on what the regulations are going to be for it. So moderate and low income is defined by the federal government. There's a formula, so low and moderate households are below 65% of the area median income. And then low income households are at 40% or below of the area median income. But because most of the communities, I believe it's 13 out of the 16 neighborhoods or tracts in Harrisburg are considered a qualified census tract. Treasury defines any qualified census tract as a disproportionately impacted community. And we're currently in a qualified census tract, so anyone in this community would be disproportionately affected by the pandemic. So there's more leeway there between the low and moderate income.
I was really looking for an example of what you define as that, only because I understand what it is, but for the community, so they understand that particular amount. Because usually in the federal programs, because I work with one of them, you start out like one person for 42,000. So that's
Correct.
what we're looking for.
That's
One at 42, two people at whatever. Is it based on the total household income, or is it based on the individual that owns?
total household income, so there's a sliding scale based on how many people are in your household. And what we'll do in the question and answer section, we'll post that chart, that table that shows what's low income for Harrisburg and what's moderate income for Harrisburg.
Heather, I think reiterating the qualified census tract, basically qualifying everybody regardless of their income is important, which you said, but say it again.
Okay. Tom was just saying, you probably couldn't hear him, but because the community is in a qualified census tract, everyone is considered disproportionately affected. So we probably don't have to look at specific incomes for that because you're in a qualified census tract.
But everybody in that qualified census tract might not necessarily, because the way Harrisburg is laid out,
Mm-hmm.
you might have someone who's making $100,000, and so because I live into a low moderate, would that allow you to qualify for it? Because right now.
Any household that's in a qualified census tract is disproportionately impacted. And I think there's 3 tracks. There's two tracks on the water, and then another one that is not a qualified census tract, so that would fall under the low and moderate income.
But the city can make its rules for any programs like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The city can further define who they want to help and why, but the federal government is not going to tell you that if you make $100,000 and live in a qualified census tract, you can't get any money. But the city can do that.
Thank you for doing this. A couple of things. Number one is you are taking sign-in names, and we really appreciate that you're keeping track of who's here at your meetings and providing follow-up. You should probably get email addresses from the people who sign in and then find a way to continue to follow up. Also, you're recording, and that's a big plus. Is that going to be posted on the website?
Yes.
Very good, very good. I wanted to make my pitch for focusing on infrastructure in the city. You've highlighted a handful of things in your presentation. Among them are the 3 that are big in my mind are roads, the lead water pipes, and stormwater sanitary sewer separation. Is the first and third, the roads and the stormwater versus sanitary sewer separation. These are chronic problems in the city. We are far behind on repaving of roads, and there are areas, for example, 18th Street near Dairy chronically floods because the stormwater sewers up above empty into the sanitary sewers at that point. So when we get a big rain, then there's a neighborhood up in there that floods chronically, and it's predictable. And the excuse is always, it would cost a lot of money to extend the storm sewers down to the river. If not now, then when? So I want to make a pitch for that. If we can find a solution to those infrastructure problems to kind of get us caught up.
Can the mayor answer that question for you?
Excellent.
Hello, Mr. Thomas. How are you? Good. Just want to answer that question for you. Just met with CRW today. Every track in the city of Harrisburg will be, we will be addressing the stormwater system. Right now, we're in the middle of doing a consensus agreement with CRW as well as with the Dauphin County Commissioners. And we're waiting for the infrastructure bill that President Biden is also passing. In a conversation with Senator Casey on Friday, this past Friday, there is a amendment to that infrastructure bill. It's Bill 5. And with that, we will be allocated some money for the city of Harrisburg.
Well, I just want to say that it took your election to get that moving.
If that's what it takes, then that's great.
title, but it is not in your bulleted list, is the broadband infrastructure. And as I'm a longtime school director here in Harrisburg, and when I saw the scramble when the pandemic hit and mobile hotspots and trying to figure out how are we going to get families broadband computer access, it was more than just get the computers in the hands of our children. It was also, we need high-speed infrastructure to be able to get the computers online. And same comment is, if not now, then when? The last piece is with regard to the profusion. It doesn't take very long to drive around the city of Harrisburg to see that the fabric of the building infrastructure in our city has big holes in it. So there, as the city of Detroit found, there were large areas of dilapidated housing and buildings that have been torn down. So there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to occur that will make those vacant lots build ready. And to that end, a lot of the buildings that have been torn down kind of get pushed back into the lot and buried. And one suggestion that we would make is to go in and do the due diligence on those lots. We also have a problem here with sinkholes. So a lot of building owners would like to come in and redo these vacant properties that are all over the city. But there's no real data on the quality of soil that's on these sites, and that is the greatest variable to getting people who want to come in and do things like affordable housing. Is the way the system's set up right now. It's like, well, if you want to research that, you can, but the city doesn't warrant anything that's below the grass that you see.
Well, and one of the main things that was added in for disproportionately impacted households was improvements to vacant land and abandoned properties. That was not in the original legislation during the interim final rule, but when the final rule was released in early January, that was included as one of the investments in a qualified census tract area.
Well, and I'm sure our new mayor had a hand in that as well. Thank you very much.
So, I came in late, so I apologize if you already spoke on this. But could you speak more to what the federal deadlines for the city, like by dates, will be for us to either spend a portion of this money or all of this money? Like, what are those deadlines?
Sure. So the city needs to obligate all of the funds by December 31st, 2024. So you need to know exactly what projects are going to be funded. And there's every quarter the city has to do reporting on what they're spending the funds for. And one of the things is what you've obligated the funds on and what you've spent. So by the end of 2024, all of the funds will need to be obligated and on that report. The funds don't need to be actually expended in full until December 31st, 2026.
And that's for like all avenues of spending?
Correct.
Okay.
But if once the end of 2024 occurs and you have all of your projects, after that you can't change the projects that you're doing. You have to spend the money on those projects that you've obligated the funds for.
And I'm sorry if I'm phrasing this a little weird, I just don't know how to put it. For infrastructure, like let's say it's a bridge, that's going to take like 10 years. Is there a grace period of like?
No, so the grace period was obligating by 24, and then you have an extra 2 years to construct the projects.
Okay.
So if there is a big ticket item that takes several years to construct, it would need to be done soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Or be started soon. Yes.
I also see on here about the rent mortgages and utility systems that was under the pandemic. That includes most of our elderly people. I believe to say that. Does that include property
Property taxes. I'm not sure on property taxes. I'd have to look at that. Yeah. And most of the programs we've seen, you have to show that you're late on payments. There's certain, you form a program with different stipulations that the city would come up with.
And none of this, I'm sorry, so none of this money can be, for clarification, be spent on any type of debt that the city.
Correct. No debt, no pension payments,
Lawsuits.
any lawsuits.
Thank you.
Yes.
If it is a state or possibly federal piece of property in the city, can any of the money given to the city be used to take care of what the state should have fixed or the federal government should have fixed?
It's currently owned by the state or the federal government. I mean, I don't see why there would be an issue with that, but I'm not sure the city would want to do that. I mean, most of it is, you want to help the residents in the community that own and live here and are affected by the pandemic.
Okay, I was mainly speaking of the streets such as State Street, which is not
Oh, a street. Okay.
not really something that the city normally handles, something that I think they're not handling here. So basically, with the issue that we have on State Street, this money cannot be used to fix something, is what I'm asking.
I mean, the city could choose to do that, but it's, whether they would want to.
Right now, we're in the middle of the business zone.
Yeah.
And that is small to $10. $10 seems like small difference. So depending on what it is that you're talking about, particularly on State Street, and you see the Allison, there. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about,
Making a safety requirement, lighting,
lightings, curbing, stop signs, yeah,
like we're in collaboration.
okay.
Mr. Thomas, to your question, you were talking about several things. Oh, the EDP soil. We never mandated in the former administration about developers coming here, but right now we are mandating that they look at that. This one developer cannot move on with his project because the EDP has stepped in.
Just having looked at several of these properties, if the prep work was done like you had topographic surveys, utility surveys, if the prospective landowners could understand the condition of the utilities and some information about the subsurface soils. We did a project at Hamilton Health. It required that the old soils be taken away and replaced. Very expensive. We did a project at Schimmel. It required that the stormwater mitigation, that would have been, I think if we had known that ahead of time, we might have approached the project differently.
Well, that's why they are doing a project now, DEP did that, and they can't do the project. And as far as the tracks that you're talking about, including the city of Harrisburg, affordable housing, we now have a developer that has 5 of those tracks, who's going to do affordable housing.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on the environmental remediation on what that entails?
So it's environmental remediation for any land within the city. It's more,
Brownfields,
yeah, brownfields.
like things that have been contaminated, things like that.
Is there a timeline as far as implementation of all of this? As long as the pandemic persists, my business is losing, I'm going further in debt every month. I'm just curious when we might see some of it.
Well, there's community meetings next week, and then after those community meetings, I would expect that we would get together with the city officials and talk about a plan on how to use the funds.
What is your business, sir?
I own the newsstand at the Harrisburg train station. 31 years.
I got you. I got your question. You're the right side. Left or right? Yes.
So is there a deadline for the community to submit ideas? I didn't Or is this only this 2-week period?
2-week period, and then we're gonna sit down. But basically, what we really want, questions and things are good, but we wanna know, what do you want us to do with the money? That's basically what this Q&A session is really about. Because we don't wanna build, say, a water park over here by where you live, and you say, we don't need a water park, we need a hospital. Just use those as examples.
We could use a water park.
That's why I threw it out there so you guys can talk about it. But anyway, but we don't want to put something somewhere and we're not connecting with the community. So we want to know, because this is probably once in a lifetime opportunity to get this kind of money to fix and build our city up the way that we would like to see it. So I hear you asking questions about, I need my bills paid. Senior Citizen Center, can you use the money on this and that? What do you want us to use it on? That's really what these meetings are about, so we can get a better understanding of what to do with this money. So when the mayor, her administration, and city council, and NW Financial, we get together, we can say, remember we was over at Allison Hill, and this person came up with an excellent idea. Things like that.
Right, I understand that, but what I'm asking, is there a time deadline?
Next Thursday.
It wasn't privileged to be at one of these meetings around the community. Can you go online and submit your ideas and then you're
Right now, we're online. Hi, everybody. We're live on Channel 20 and Facebook Live. And right before the meeting, sometimes people do it during the meeting. They can submit any question that they would like for us to answer. We then take the questions, present them to NW because they're the experts on this wonderful money, and they answer and send it back to us, and we get back to the people who asked the questions.
Right, I understand that. I'm saying, is there a date affiliated with that? Like,
Next, listen to me. Next.
And by the end of February, or,
Next Thursday is the last meeting, and that's gonna be at the Nativity School. The questions delivered from that meeting is the last question. However, if you submit something after that, we're not gonna not answer your question. But next Thursday will be the deadline for submission of questions.
And
Did I answer it?
if you need the email address too, I have it here, you can write it down before you leave. Yes.
What about something specific to a certain project that you want to do? Right. Same thing?
So what is this? Yeah.
What is a piece of land that you think the project would work? And not specific piece of land. Would that be something also?
Yes. For any specific location projects, I would give the address and your idea of what the project would be, because one, there's greater latitude of what can be done within a qualified census tract, and a majority of the city is within one. but there are some neighborhoods that are not. So it would be important to know the address and then the project you were thinking. And then we can look at it to see if it would be eligible.
So you interact with the city to see if they can do that project?
Yeah. You could submit the question to the email address. Yes.
You said the city would be looking into whether or not the senior citizen center would be given any money. How would they be notified?
So just to clarify on the senior citizen question, is it building a new senior center? It's giving money to the senior center.
Giving money for them to sanitize
Oh, to sanitize.
and maintenance.
Anything for cleaning, mitigating COVID is an eligible expense. So that would be eligible under the rules.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you want someone to come into this time center
Yeah,
and clean it?
whatever is necessary to make the building usable.
Okay, good, okay. Is the building closed down?
Oh, yeah.
Currently it's closed?
Yeah.
So,
It's close to some parts.
okay, is it closed because the windows are leaking, the roof's leaking, or anything like that?
Yeah, because it's COVID.
Okay, so it's closed because of COVID. So you want us to come in and sanitize the place so we can reopen? Yeah, we can do that.
Because it's related to COVID. Or it's related to COVID. Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
In the back?
I don't know, well, this definitely is not related to COVID. It's just something that's been an issue in the city for quite a while. We need to have on regular city streets such as North Street, Ridge Street, ones from State Street over to Kerr Street. We have a number of two-way streets that are basically one-way streets. Could this money be used to hire someone to do a study and make these streets flow the way they should? And in areas where we don't have sidewalks and curbing on regular city streets, could this money be used to deal with getting the city the way it's supposed to be?
If it's within a qualified census tract, and it's dealing with safety issues, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But it also has to be related to our engineering part. And it also collaboration with the department and exactly what the information convert from two-way streets to one-way streets. I have to set up that to the department of transportation to make sure that it's not looking up there that it's State Street.
Okay.
In particular, 15th Street, I'm dealing with 15th Street with young children back there. One day, one street, one outside requirements. But I have to send correspondence to the Department of Transportation, and they have to qualify or not, whether or not they can do that. Because not only does it run into the bypass, it also runs into Susquehanna Township, which has Susquehanna Township to get their permission.
I'll send you the information on the streets I'm talking about.
Okay.
And also to piggyback on the mayor, with the infrastructure bill, that there isn't a ton of information out there on it yet, but that deals with roadways, tunnels, bridges. So it's really for the American Rescue Plan, it's looking at all of the available funds, whether it's from the federal government, the state, the county, or the city's own funds. What's the best way to use that through the various different funding that's available? And so for something like that, that is a roadway, the best option might be through the infrastructure funding that the city receives.
I think you brought up a good point that, or you mentioned that we have a few bridges in our region and even in the city that are classified as like crumbling, basically because they haven't been updated or looked at in a long time by the state. So I think, and I appreciate you for having this one, so we can say where we think we want to go. Really appreciate it. Maybe taking a look at our bridges. We don't want another Pittsburgh disaster happening here, but yeah, so I just wanted.
Anyone else have any questions?
A follow-on question on the bridges. It was the Coast Gazette had a fairly extensive article about the bridge infrastructure that's city-owned in Pittsburgh versus the state-owned. So the state infrastructure program was covering the overwhelming majority of the poor quality bridges in Pittsburgh, that were state bridges, but it left a boatload of city-owned bridges in Pittsburgh. We have city-owned bridges in Harrisburg. No city-owned, but Pittsburgh has like 70 city-owned bridges that are in poor condition.
Councilman? No. Yeah, definitely.
This money is money that the citizens of Harrisburg has an opportunity to do the things that we need to do here. We have blighted homes. We have senior citizens who have no furnaces. We have senior citizens who have no windows. Porches are falling down, whether it's your back or front. Sometimes CDBG money is good, but it runs out. And we need to focus on our senior citizens that want to stay in their homes. We need to focus on some of our streets that need to be repaved. I know going down 4th Street is horrible, and I'm sure you know, it's by the cathedral, and that's horrible. So that's my focus, is to make sure that we understand that we need to have affordable housing, build homes for people, single family, not apartment buildings, but homes. We need to have our kids have the opportunity to play in the front yard, backyard, not run through apartment buildings. So those are the things that I think we need to focus on. In speaking with CRW, they've taken on the responsibility to invest in trying to fix our sewer system, because we have an antiquated sewer system with 5 people on a party line. So we need to make available monies to those individuals who have sewer problems. That is some of the things that I am looking to do. So if there's other things that come about, I want to hear what you want to do.
And just a quick question for you guys. How with your consultancy group, are you consulting any other cities in the state that are of similar size to us, or across the country, or
We're doing work with Allentown.
okay.
And then we have a couple of cities in New Jersey, City of Paterson, Clifton, Passaic. Paterson is a pretty large city, about 200,000 people, a little bit less than that. Yes.
I was on Google a couple days ago, and a video came up about the city of Harrisburg, and they were going off in Harrisburg, and it was horrible. The homes all boarded up and
The infrastructure bill is a little tough since there's not details out. And I'm sure there's going to be something like this final rule, 400 and something pages to sort through for that.
437.
Yes.
That's something that Harrisburg doesn't have, that I was looking forward to having that sometime soon.
This is a rec center.
Absolutely, I didn't have to.
You said Harrisburg didn't have it, I just wanted to correct.
I'm talking about that the city owns, that the city owns and rents, like through parks and recs and stuff like that, in that nature. I understand this is rules back here.
I'm gonna have to talk to people on that.
I'm not sure a rec center would fit under the guidelines. We do know that park improvements, outdoor activities are included in it. Especially during the pandemic, being outside was promoted, social distancing. There is specific information that the Treasury sent out that larger spaces, that there can be congregate gatherings are not allowed, but they're talking more along the lines of stadiums, like a football, baseball, basketball stadium, but we could look into a rec center to see if that would be.
Well, and that's one of the questions that I posed, several people. I was in, a training session for an hour, 45 minutes, Broadband Park. It's one of the questions I posed, and they did not have an answer. What I know some questions, some answers to questions that were coming in, said they'd like to see the stadium.
Stadium's definitely not allowed.
Oh, no, the reason why you don't want to have a rec center owned by the city is because it becomes a liability. You cannot afford not to own that liability. That means skating parks, recreational centers, because then you take on that responsibility, which means you have to ensure that, and you do not want that liability, because they are not your employees, and it's more money that you put out for this whole thing. So it has to be an independent contractor that's coming for some of those ideas. It would actually operate like this one operates. So you understand, that's why you have to keep those things separate. That's all. Just one thing.
Well, no, maybe you say that as a resident, you say as a mayor. I want to tell people that are liability, because they're self-insured.
Your liability.
And that means a lot.
Yes.
Job training, is that something like a company has for a nonprofit that teaches the kids different trades and skills to get developed for job training?
Yes, it would be for that. It would be for anyone who lost their jobs during the pandemic, anyone that is looking to get a better job. All of that would be included under an eligible use.
So if the company has a building that they will want to use to utilize job training to certain skills, electrical, plumbing, like an apprenticeship,
Yes.
they can apply for that money?
Mm-hmm. Yes. If there is a job training program that the city decides to do, it would be, yes. It's an eligible use that the city could use the funds for. Anyone else?
All right, you guys had some good questions tonight. Just to Mr. Thompson, are you still currently on the school board? So you should know that the school district has their own money, that they can do all those wonderful things that you was discussing. The school district has more money than the city of Harrisburg and Dauphin County. So we have yet to have access to our new superintendent to sit down and discuss with him what he wants to do with the money, because Dauphin County has sat down with the city of Harrisburg and they would like to partner with us so that our money can stretch, that we can make it longer. I'm sure if we can get with the new superintendent, we can make it even go further. But your answer, the school district has money that we have yet to have a conversation to do with it. We're trying to.
Next week,
We're on the calendar now, next week. Okay? So, affordable housing is something that the mayor ran on. And that's something that she's really, really working on, looking forward to. She has a couple of MBE companies to work with to see what we can come up with for the city of Harrisburg. Your situation is a little unique. I'm going to, yeah, but I'm saying your price tag, we're going to talk. I'm going to present your letter to the mayor tomorrow and we're going to speak. So you'll hear from us. But the Senior Citizen Center, we can come up there and do that now. I don't think we have to use these funds to come up there. I pull out my micro band and my little wipes, have that place good as new. But that's an easy fix for the Senior Citizen Center. So, but you guys have some good questions, and keep them coming online. We're going to have everybody to answer the questions. If you have it in Spanish, we have a Spanish interpreter. She can, thank God for Melissa. But I see a hand that's halfway up. You got something to say?
I know I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Where do I find out what is considered to be affordable housing? Because when I hear of what people are paying for places, in my mind, that's not affordable. So what is considered to be affordable?
Well, I don't have my piece of paper in front of me, but it's low to moderate income. And that's the guidelines for affordable housing. Affordable housing is not always and only for low income. Maybe she could.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your questions tonight. So the affordable housing is defined by the median area income. So it was mentioned, there's a chart that HUD circulates, and it's designated by the number of people in a household and their income, and that generates what should be deemed affordable for that family or that individual. Another good indicator is your housing should not be more than 30% of your income. Anything over 30% of your income, it's deemed cost burden. So you're just living beyond your means when maybe you're really not, but that's just what that term means. So I hope that answered your question. It can get a little tricky because everyone defines it differently. Especially the low to moderate, that can get a little confusing, and then there's extremely low.
I'm just seeing people paying extremely high rents that I consider low income, and I wonder how they make ends meet.
I know it definitely is a struggle, and it's something that not only the mayor, but I know I'm very passionate about it, and I've researched, and that's why we have the affordable housing legislative package that was passed last year. And we look forward to developers utilizing this package where any new builds that they have, 20% would be deemed affordable for our residents. So that would be the individuals or families that fall into the low to moderate income categories. Based on, well, no, it's 20% based on the number of units per se, or however the structure is being built. But whatever the total is, 20% of that number would have to be affordable for our residents. Sometimes it's 2 units, other times it's 10, but that's the standard that we've set. And if they can't meet it, then we can't do business with them. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. Congratulations on a successful public meeting number 2. I look forward to next week's.
And when's the next one?
Put me on the spot. The next public meeting will be held next Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And the location is the Boys and Girls Club at 17th and Hanover Streets. So please mark your calendars and join us again. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. That is all. Thank you, guys. Thank you.